lions, the sacred white lions at Timbavati, also sits on the Nilotic meridian. And then we get to the strange and mysterious tools, stone tools and artifacts that I started collecting. For some reason, when I first arrived there in this place from Johannesburg 11 years ago now, I don't know why I was attracted to certain things, because they didn't make any sense geologically or archaeologically, but I started collecting these weird stones, and thank God for that, because right now those are turning out to be the most valuable and crucial pieces of evidence for this vanished civilization and what was going on there. You can see how happy I was when I picked up that one. And then we have what I call these the bird-shaped stones. Here's another bird-shaped stone. It looks like it was carved, and then the patina has grown over it. And then the weird cone-shaped tools that I started collecting. Just strange cone-shaped tools everywhere, scattered across the mountains. Not to forget the donut stones or the Taurus stones. And there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of these donut Taurus-shaped stones scattered throughout southern Africa. And that brings us to the stones that ring like bells, these weird elongated stones that look like French loaves, that when you tap them, they ring so spectacularly, so beautifully, you would not believe it's a stone, it's a bell. The one at the top here, for example, that clearly looks like it was carved or shaped by somebody. That doesn't look like a normal stone, and neither does the one at the bottom. And they both ring at the same frequency. That is the key thing here. When you ring them, and they ring like bells. In fact, that one at the top was the very first tool that I've ever collected. But nothing could have prepared me for the discovery of January 2018, when my first Stone Circle research team accidentally discovered the mud fossils of giants and other creatures. And it was like cognitive dissonance have just suddenly vanished. So once I was blind, now I could see. It's incredible. And we were walking up the mountain with this team. This was in January. And this stone here, that stone there was lying right beneath my feet. So I picked it up, and once again, I just shook my head and I went, why are these stones these weird shapes? What's going on with all these weird shapes, man? And I put the stone down on the wall, one of the walls, and I walked up the mountain and I said, by the time I come down, I'm going to figure out what this is. And I did. As I was coming down, I suddenly started remembering all the stuff I was seeing in my research into mud fossils. And when I looked at that stone again, I picked it up, I went, oh my goodness, this is a rib. And everything changed. And there you can see a collection of many of the fossils. Here we have a shoulder blade. We got one rib here. There's another beautiful elongated rib. And there are just all kinds of body parts that completely and utterly metamorphosize. Now, here is one of the best examples. There's a heart. You can clearly see the aorta, where the aorta goes at the top. You see the coronary artery crossing the heart. This is about 3 times the size of a human heart. So this could possibly fit the shape of an Anunnaki. If the Anunnaki were 3 times the size or twice the size of humans, that could be an Anunnaki heart. Completely fossilized, metamorphosized into Hornfels rock. This is a huge problem for geology and metallurgy and chemistry. It seems that when these body parts get trapped in mud and water, they completely and utterly transmutate and transform from whatever organ it was or body part with the internal structure. It completely metamorphosizes into very dense crystalline rock called hornfels in geological terms. When these fossils break and you look at the internal structure, you can't see internal structure. This is the mystery. Only when you look carefully, you start seeing some indications of weird things going on. And you'll see what I mean in a second. But just to the untrained eye, when any of these fossils break, it just looks like black rock, known as hornfels or ringstone. We have teeth, hearts, ribs, and I'm picking up more and more hearts, different shapes and sizes of hearts. In fact, some of them look like they still have organic material in it. By the way, we have identified a few of these fossils and taken them away to the lab to extract DNA. Yes, you can extract DNA from mud fossils. That is not something new. It has been done before. So I wait with great anticipation for us to extract DNA from some of these fossils, because that's going to be a whole nother step. And one of the things that happened, I was holding that heart in my hand like I was here in this picture. Literally, it was taken on the same day. I was standing with his heart in my hand, and this couple pulled up, a guy and his wife, and he ran up and he said, "Hey, Michael, how's it going? I've been watching your videos." And he looked at me and said, "Is that a heart you're holding?" And I go, "Yeah, well, I think it's a heart." He goes, "Well, it is a heart. I'm a surgeon. That's a bloody heart." And I go, "Wow, you're a surgeon?" "Yeah, I'm a surgeon at the Johannesburg Gen." So I said, "Wow, would you mind just going on video and telling me a bit about some of these body parts?" So I've got about a 5-minute video or more, but like 10-minute video clip of him going around telling me what these different body parts are. So it was a really beautifully timed moment. And since then, there have been many doctors and physicians and people that understand human anatomy, and their jaws literally fall to the ground when they see what fills the museum. That is where the shoulder blade was lying. I've been driving past this for 10 years. 10 years. Didn't see it. That's that expression. Once I was blind, but now I can see. Everything changes. Here's a bone knuckle, a large bone knuckle. The shaft going to the left, and you can see with my feet next to it, the size of that. I mean, and this is like a foot in a shoe or something. It's like some sort of a foot in a leather shoe. I was joking about this. Emma and I were up the mountain. We were joking. Look, this looks just like a foot. This is 6 months before we realized that we're actually dealing with mud fossils. Suddenly, everything changes. Now we go, okay, well, what's going on here? Here we've got bones. You can clearly see that that's a bone up there. That's not a rock, a fossilized bone. And all these others. This is a bone with muscle attached to it. So that's what these rocks look like. That's when the whole muscle and tissue together fossilize. That's what happens. They create these beautiful rounded structures. Here you got pieces of a spine. There's that rib that I picked up. More ribs. The fascinating thing about this rib here, that seems to be the one right at the top, except like 3 or 4 times the size of a human rib. When you look at it from the edge, it looks like someone cut it with a knife. It was like somebody was having a spare rib feast. It's ridiculous. Here's a part of a jawbone, this piece that goes up right under your ear here, except that's like 20 times the size of a human. Not sure what this is, what part of the body that is. This is another look at that bone and a claw. This is a claw from some creature. Have no idea, but we're now picking up more and more claws and hooves of creatures. This is a hoof of some creature. This is where the bone would have come in from the top. You can see it's got cutting marks, as if somebody actually cut the bone. There's like the talon on the side here. You can see where the talon broke off, or the, what's that thing? The talon? Was it called a talon? A claw? The claw or the talon on the chicken foot is another angle. From the top, you can see the saw marks. Somebody was sawing that bone off. And the phalluses. Here's a giant phallus. This is just insane. This was taken out near Adam's calendar. And then this is just a collection, a shot of a bunch of skin, sort of reptilian skin with the meat attached to it. This is a close-up of the reptilian skin on one of them. And this is my favorite one, where you can actually see the skin at the top and how the epithelial cells are growing up into the skin before they actually reach the top. This entire thing is one piece of Hornfels rock, completely and utterly metamorphosized. You cannot distinguish internal organs in any possible way. That is a huge cognitive dissonance problem we're going to have to come across, because we don't understand how that works. I don't know what the hell this is, but I find it fascinating. Again, you can see the skin, the reptilian skin, and whatever this was inside here, that completely turned to rock. This is one of my favorite pieces. Again, the skin there, and then these claw marks or teeth marks. Somebody was having a little steak when a giant wall of mud came and engulfed them all and turned them into mud fossils. And then recently, On the last Stone Circle expedition, I've been walking past this rock and many rocks like this lying up on top of the mountain, and you just think they're rocks. Well, you'd be wrong. All of them are pretty much fossils. We noticed this strange thing in there, this weird, like a, whatever that is, whatever you call it, a pattern in there. And we photographed it and we started playing with it, the exposure. We realized it's a tail, you see, sort of a lizard or a crocodile tail with a hind leg, one hind leg there, another hind leg down here. When you look at the other, there's another view of it. There's a crocodile or lizard leg, tail going back there. There's the one leg. This entire thing is one giant rock. So, the mud fossils of giants and weird creatures have suddenly taken the spotlight off the stone circles and the vanished civilizations because they seem to be everywhere. And we now have to put this into context of what we're dealing with here. We've got this vast civilization with all these terraces everywhere, growing huge amounts of food, millions of stone circles, and now this on top of it. What the hell is going on? And that brings us to the whole biblical story. When the gods were on earth, there were giants. And Hugh Newman knows all about this because of his new book about giants on record. We've all seen this. Many of us would have seen this image on the internet of real, actual historic finds of giants or pieces of giants or fragments. So these are real. And yet this is nothing compared to what we're finding. In the Jewish Encyclopedia, we get told about the rabbinical tradition, about the Anakim that are of the same titanic races as the Rephaim, the Nephilim, the Gibborim, the Zamzumim, and the Emim. They talk about them like they were the Russians, the Jews, the Russians, the Polish, the Portuguese, and the Italians, right? And like they knew who they were. Well, we have no idea who they were. The Zamzumim and the Emim, wow. In South Africa, we have the Boskop skull that's about 20% larger than the human skull. And then we have this bone fragment that's actually crystallized already at the Wits Museum, Wits University in Johannesburg. That's where I graduated from, by the way, in 1983. And there's the size. It's about at least twice this. It's at least twice the size of a human leg bone, a human joint there. Look at that compared to that. When you see it in real life, it's a lot more impressive. And then you start seeing footprints like this that has become far more interesting, but nothing like the giant footprint close to my house, about 2 hours drive from where I live. And this is probably about 7 times as large as a human. It's interesting that Klaus Donner actually found the nose bone, the heel bone, and a skull fragment in Ecuador of a giant that was about 10 meters tall, or between 7 and 10 meters tall. And what is even more interesting, that the skeleton of that giant in Ecuador is actually in the Ecuador Museum. It's on display for everyone to see. And then there's still people that talk about, oh, giants are just a myth, they don't really exist. And there are these giant skeletons for us to see all over the world. But these are the small guys. Once we start looking at the books of Leviticus and the book of Enoch, everything changes. Because in Leviticus, they tell us, or whoever the narrator is tells us, that we were like locusts by their side. That's how small we were compared to the giants that lived in that part of the world. And the book of Enoch, I've heard about the book of Enoch so much and about the giants. So I looked it up just before I left. And I found it, I think it was on page 69 or 89, I can't remember now, where it clearly talks about the giants that were 3,000 ells tall. So I looked up what an ell is, and an ell is just short of half a meter. So 3,000 ells would make these giants 1.5 kilometers tall, or just short of a mile. Now this is a whole nother scale. And we have to start cognitively and consciously thinking about the possibility and probability and reality of these beings that existed on our planet at some time in the past. Stop shoving it aside and ignoring it, because history and oral tradition keeps talking about it. And even now in the stone circles, you can't get away from it. Suddenly it's all about the bloody giants. You know, I didn't want to talk about the giants, but I'm forced to talk about the giants. You know, I want to talk about stone circles. And we're picking up pieces of bloody giants everywhere. You know, these are not stones. These are fossils, people. Stones don't make these weird shapes. body parts, anatomy makes these weird shapes, and not just of humans, of weird creatures that we have no idea what